My husband, the director, demanded I cancel my emergency surgery for a client pitch. He mocked me, calling me too sensitive and dramatic when I hesitated. I said, okay, then made a single call that changed everything. By the time the pitch started, he was begging me not to. Turns out I wasn't the one being dramatic after all. Cancel it. Josiah didn't even look up from his laptop when he said it, as if rescheduling my emergency surgery was as simple as moving a hair appointment. I stood frozen in our kitchen doorway, Dr. Reeves' urgent voicemail still echoing in my ears. 72 hours to stop the internal bleeding or face organ failure. My husband, the prestigious creative director of Apex Marketing, just kept typing his presentation notes, my presentation notes actually, waiting for me to agree like I always did. Did you hear me? I managed, my voice barely steady. The pain in my abdomen had been building for weeks, but this morning it felt different. Sharper, like something inside was tearing apart. The Kellerman pitch is tomorrow, Naomi. You know that. His fingers never stopped moving across the keyboard. Whatever procedure you've scheduled can wait until next week. Before we continue, if you believe that no one should have to choose between their life and their job, please consider subscribing. It helps these important stories reach others who might need to hear them. I watched him sitting there at our granite kitchen island, surrounded by the trappings of his success. The latest MacBook, his collection of industry awards displayed on the shelf behind him, the Italian espresso machine I'd bought with my last paycheck before I'd quit my job to support his career. 3 years ago I'd been Naomi Mitchell, rising strategist at Morrison & Associates. Now I was Mrs. Blackwood, invisible architect of my husband's empire. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd woken at 5 a.m. to finish the very presentation he was reviewing. While he'd slept soundly, I'd been hunched over my laptop, fighting through waves of pain to perfect the campaign that would win him another bonus, another accolade, another step up the ladder built from my ideas. It's not just any procedure, I said, moving closer, hoping proximity might make him actually see me. Dr. Reeves said it's a ruptured cyst. There's internal bleeding. If I don't. You're being dramatic. He finally looked up, and the irritation in his eyes hit harder than the physical pain. Everyone has health issues. I presented with a migraine last quarter, remember? A migraine. He was comparing a migraine to internal hemorrhaging. I wanted to laugh, but I was afraid if I started I might not stop. Or I might cry. Or both. My phone buzzed. Emma, my sister, texting to check if I'd gotten the test results. I'd been keeping her at arm's length about the pain, not wanting to worry her. She had enough on her plate with her divorce, and besides, what would I tell her? That I'd been ignoring increasingly severe symptoms because my husband needed his presentations typed, his meetings scheduled, his brilliance manufactured? The pitch is at 10 tomorrow, Josiah continued, returning to his screen. You'll be there, obviously. We need to present a united front. The Kellerman account is worth $12 million annually. He loved that word when it meant my work with his signature. He'd use it tomorrow too, gesturing confidently as he presented concepts he'd initially called too risky, when I'd suggested them over dinner last month. I still had the email where he'd dismissed my integrated nostalgia campaign as amateur, sent just 3 days before he pitched it to his boss as his breakthrough innovation. I could die, I said quietly. Dr. Reeves was clear. 72 hours maximum. But she recommended tomorrow morning. God, Naomi, always so sensitive. He shook his head, that familiar condescending smile playing on his lips. This is exactly what I mean. You let everything become a crisis. It's probably stress-related anyway. You know how you get. How I get. As if the stress wasn't from creating campaigns at 2 a.m. while he slept, from watching him accept praise for my strategies, from smiling politely at company events while colleagues congratulated him on insights I'd developed. The stress of being erased, presentation by presentation, meeting by meeting, day by day. I thought about our wedding photo in the living room, how young and hopeful I'd looked. I'd actually believed we'd be partners, that my marketing expertise would complement his business connections. Instead, I'd become his ghostwriter, his secret weapon, his convenient in-house creative department. Make sure the analytics are updated, he added, already dismissing me. And wear that navy dress tomorrow. Professional but not distracting. You know how traditional Kellerman's team can be. I nodded because what else could I do? The pain twisted sharper and I gripped the counter. Josiah didn't notice. He was already practicing his opening, my words flowing from his mouth with practiced confidence. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, each step an effort. Our house was beautiful. The suburban dream we'd bought with his first major bonus, the one earned from the campaign I'd created while recovering from the flu. I passed his office, door always locked, where he'd developed strategies that consisted mainly of golf videos and LinkedIn networking while I worked from the kitchen table, accessible and interruptible. The medicine cabinet was full of his vitamins, his prescription medications carefully organized. My pain relievers were shoved in the back, expired. When had I stopped taking care of myself? When had I accepted that my pain was less important than his comfort? My laptop sat open on the bed where I'd left it at 4 a.m., the Kellerman presentation glowing on the screen. Slide after slide of brilliance that would never bear my name. Tomorrow he'd stand in that conference room, click through my thoughts, my creativity, my expertise while I sat in the corner taking notes, the supportive wife, the invisible foundation of his visible success. The pain flared again, and this time I couldn't suppress the gasp. Something was seriously wrong. Dr. Reeves had been explicitly clear. This wasn't something to postpone. But Josiah had been equally clear. The pitch came first. His career came first. He came first. Always. The next morning arrived too soon and not soon enough. I'd barely slept, the pain keeping me in a state of half-consciousness where every position brought fresh agony. At 7 a.m. sharp my phone rang. Dr. Helena Reeves. Naomi, I've been reviewing your test results with the surgical team. Her voice carried an urgency that made my stomach drop. The hemorrhaging is more severe than we initially assessed. The cyst didn't just rupture. It's caused damage to surrounding tissue. We need to operate within 72 hours, but honestly I'd prefer tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. if possible. I heard the shower running. Josiah's morning routine, precise as clockwork. 20-minute shower, 10 minutes for grooming, 5 for selecting his outfit. I had a 35-minute window. There's significant blood accumulation in your peritoneal cavity, Dr. Reeves continued. Are you experiencing increased pain? Dizziness? Yes to both, I admitted, sinking onto our bed. The Egyptian cotton sheets Josiah insisted on buying felt cold against my fevered skin. Then we can't delay. Without intervention we're looking at organ failure, Naomi. Your liver and kidneys are already under stress. I need you to understand, this is life-threatening. My hand trembled as I grabbed a pen from the nightstand. 8 a.m. tomorrow. I'll be there. Good. No food or drink after midnight tonight. Naomi? If the pain becomes unbearable or you experience sudden fever, come to the emergency room immediately. Don't wait. After she hung up, I stared at our shared calendar on my phone. Tomorrow's date glared back at me. Kellerman pitched an im. Do not schedule anything else in Josiah's bold red text. My fingers hesitated over the screen before I added in small blue text. Surgery 8 a.m. The shower shut off. I could hear him humming, that confident tune he always hummed on big presentation days. I sat on the edge of our bed, practicing words in my head. How do you tell someone who sees you as an accessory that you might cease to exist entirely? He emerged in a cloud of steam, towel wrapped around his waist, his gym-maintained physique on display. 3 times a week with his personal trainer while I worked through lunch, creating the presentations that paid for those sessions. Big day tomorrow, he said, not really looking at me as he selected a tie from his collection. Did you finalize the demographic breakdowns? Josiah, I need to tell you something. Can it wait? I need to mentally prepare. He held up 2 ties, both gifts I'd given him using money from my depleted savings. The blue or the silver? I just got off the phone with Dr. Reeves. The test results. The blue then. He tossed the silver aside. Makes me look trustworthy but innovative. I'm having surgery tomorrow morning. Hate him. His hands stopped moving. Slowly he turned to face me, and the expression on his face wasn't concern. It was inconvenience, like I'd just told him I'd scheduled a carpet cleaning during the Super Bowl. Tomorrow? The Kellerman pitch is tomorrow. I know, but... Then obviously you need to reschedule. He turned back to his closet, pulling out his lucky presentation suit. Next week would be better. I stood up, fighting a wave of dizziness. It can't wait. There's internal bleeding. Dr. Reeves said if we don't operate within 72 hours, my organs could fail. He actually laughed. Not a nervous laugh or an uncomfortable laugh, but the same dismissive chuckle he used when interns suggested ideas in meetings. Naomi, you're being dramatic again. Too sensitive as always. He pulled on his underwear with casual indifference to my words. Everyone has health issues. I had a migraine during the Stevenson presentation, remember? Still closed the deal. The comparison hit me like cold water. A migraine versus organ failure. This was how he saw me. My life measured against his mild discomforts and found equally weighted. This is different. I tried again, pulling up Dr. Reeves' message on my phone. Look, she says it's life-threatening. He glanced at my screen for maybe 2 seconds. Doctors always say that. Liability reasons. They dramatize everything to cover themselves legally. He pulled on his pants, each movement deliberate and unconcerned. Your little procedure can wait 3 days. Your little procedure. The words hung in the air between us. My potential death had been diminished to an inconvenience smaller than a dental cleaning. The Kellerman account is worth $12 million annually, he continued, his voice taking on that lecturing tone I'd heard him use with junior staff. My bonus alone would pay off the rest of the mortgage. Your surgery, what costs a few thousand? Maybe 10? Think about the math here. When I didn't respond immediately, his expression shifted. The dismissiveness morphed into something colder, more calculated. He walked over to where I stood, still in yesterday's clothes because changing had seemed impossible with the pain. Adults make sacrifices, he said slowly as if explaining to a child. Do you want to explain to the mortgage company why my bonus disappeared? To our families why we had to cancel the renovation? Because my wife couldn't handle a stomach ache. A stomach ache. Internal hemorrhaging reduced to the equivalent of bad sushi. I could die, I whispered. You're being selfish. The word hung between us like a blade. This pitch is about our future. Our success. And you want to jeopardize it for what? Some routine procedure that could happen any time. I felt something break inside me. Not physically, though the pain was getting worse, but something deeper. Some final thread of delusion that had let me believe he saw me as a person rather than a tool. Okay, I heard myself whisper. His face transformed immediately, the cold calculation replaced by satisfaction. He reached out and patted my head, actually patted it like I was a dog who'd finally learned to sit. Good girl. That's my smart wife. He moved back to his closet, already dismissing me. Make sure you update the ROI projections. And take something for the pain if you need to, but nothing that'll make you drowsy tomorrow. I need you sharp for support. He grabbed his gym bag and headed for the door. I've got a spa appointment at 2. Massage and facial. Need to look my best for Kellerman. You should probably rest, though. You look terrible. The front door closed with a decisive click. I stood frozen for a moment, processing what had just happened. My husband had just told me to postpone life-saving surgery for a business meeting. More than that, he'd made me feel guilty for even considering my life more important than his commission. I made it to the kitchen before the rage hit. The rage in my kitchen crystallized into something colder, more precise. I stood at the sink, gripping the edge until my knuckles went white, and made a decision that would have seemed impossible even an hour ago. My laptop sat open on the counter where I'd left it after finishing Josiah's presentation. But instead of closing it, I opened a different folder. One buried deep in my documents, labeled innocuously Recipe Archive. Inside were 3 years of evidence I'd collected without fully understanding why. Maybe some part of me had always known this day would come. I scrolled through timestamps, emails, original drafts, until I found what I was looking for. Marcus Kellerman's personal cell number from when we'd worked together at Morrison & Associates 5 years ago, before I'd become Mrs. Invisible Blackwood. My finger hesitated over the call button. Marcus had tried to poach me twice since I'd left Morrison, but both times Josiah had convinced me to decline. We don't need 2 careers competing, he'd said. Partnership means supporting each other. What he'd meant was, your talent should remain hidden so mine can shine. I pressed call before I could lose my nerve. Naomi Mitchell? Marcus's voice carried surprise and something else, pleasure. It's been too long. It's Blackwood now, I corrected, though the name tasted bitter. Right, of course. Josiah's wife. He mentions you sometimes, though not nearly enough considering you're supposedly his secret weapon. There was an edge to his tone I hadn't expected. Marcus, I need to see you. Today. It's about tomorrow's pitch. Pause. Naomi, if Josiah's trying to use you to negotiate better terms. This isn't about negotiations. It's about truth. Can you meet me at Grounded Coffee on 5th? The quiet one, not the chain. I'll be there in 40 minutes. I changed into something that didn't scream dying inside, though the effort of pulling on jeans nearly made me pass out. The drive downtown required stopping once to breathe through a wave of pain so intense I thought I might vomit. But I made it, parking in the back where Josiah would never accidentally spot my car. Marcus was already there, seated in a corner booth with clear sight lines to both entrances. Old habits from his paranoid CO days. He stood when he saw me, and his expression shifted from professional curiosity to genuine concern. Jesus, Naomi, you look like death. Yeah, there's a reason for that. I slid into the booth, grateful to be sitting. He signaled the server for coffee, then studied me with those sharp eyes that had built a Fortune 500 company. Talk to me. So I did. I told him about the internal bleeding, the ruptured cyst, Dr. Reeves' 72-hour deadline. His face darkened with each word, but when I explained Josiah's response, the dismissal, the comparison to his migraines, the command to postpone surgery, Marcus's coffee cup actually rattled against the saucer from the trembling of his hands. He told you to cancel life-saving surgery for a pitch meeting? He called it my little procedure. Said I was being dramatic and too sensitive. Marcus's jaw clenched. That's attempted. He stopped himself, but I knew what he'd been about to say. I know what it is, I said quietly. Then before I could lose my nerve, I lifted my shirt just enough to show the bruising that had spread across my abdomen, purple and black like storm clouds. He sucked in a sharp breath. You should be in a hospital right now. I will be. Tomorrow. After the pitch. Naomi. I need you to see something. I pulled out my laptop, typing in passwords with fingers that only shook a little. This is why I called you. The first email I showed him was from 6 months ago. My original campaign concept for Kellerman Industries, sent to Josiah at 2:47 a.m. with detailed strategies, demographic analyses and creative concepts. His response at 7 a.m., this needs work. Too complicated. Let me fix it. Then I showed Marcus the presentation Josiah had sent to set up the pitch meeting. Word for word my exact campaign. Keep reading, I said, pulling up more files. Email after email, campaign after campaign. The Stevenson rebrand that had won Apex an industry award. My design sent to Josiah while I had the flu. The Morrison recovery strategy that had saved a $10 million account, created during my supposed vacation, while Josiah played golf with clients. 3 years of my invisible labor, documented with timestamps, original files and Josiah's dismissive responses followed by him presenting my exact work as his innovation. The tagline for your campaign, I said, pulling up one final email. Legacy meets tomorrow. Josiah's been bragging about coming up with it during his morning workout. Marcus read my email dated 3 weeks ago, 1:15 a.m. with that exact tagline embedded in a full creative brief. His face had gone pale. I've suspected something for months, he said finally. The writing style in his presentations never matched how he spoke. Technical details he couldn't explain without you there. I actually requested you specifically for this account. Did you know that? I shook my head. He said you were just support staff. No strategic experience. Just helped with scheduling and notes. Marcus's laugh was bitter. But every time he fumbled a question, you somehow had the complete answer from your notes. There's more, I said, my voice steadier now. Your ethics consultant, Vivian Ashford. She worked with Josiah before, didn't she? Marcus's eyes widened. At his previous agency. She left after 6 months. Never said why, but she went very quiet when I mentioned we were considering Apex for this contract. Call her. Ask her about her experience. I'm betting my story isn't unique. He was already pulling out his phone. What do you want from this, Naomi? What's your plan? I closed my laptop, meeting his eyes directly. Tomorrow you're going to bring Vivian and whoever else needs to see this. Board members, other executives, I don't care. When Josiah presents my work, claiming it as his own, you're going to know the truth. We could handle this differently. I could confront him privately, force him to credit you. No. The word came out harder than I intended. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about every assistant whose ideas he's stolen, Every junior employee he's crushed. Every person who's been erased so he could shine. They deserve to see him exposed. Marcus studied me for a long moment. You know this will destroy him professionally. He asked me to die for his bonus. I think we're past professional courtesy. Fair point. He stood, pulling out his wallet, but I waved him off. Naomi, I want you to know. There's a position at Kellerman Industries whenever you're ready. Strategic Director. Your name on everything. Let's get through tomorrow first. He reached across the table, squeezing my hand gently. You should have been visible all along. I'm sorry it took this to make it happen. As he left, I sat in the quiet cafe feeling something shift inside me. Not the physical pain which was constant now, but something else. For 3 years I'd accepted invisibility as the price of marriage, of stability, of supporting someone I thought loved me. Tomorrow I would become visible in the most spectacular way possible. The drive home from the cafe took twice as long as usual. I had to pull over 3 times, each wave of pain forcing me to grip the steering wheel until it passed. By the time I reached our driveway, the sun was setting, painting our suburban house in deceptively warm colors. Inside, I knew, waited the cold reality of what tomorrow would bring. I barely made it through the front door before doubling over. The pain had shifted from sharp stabs to a constant grinding agony that radiated through my entire torso. Each breath felt like work. But I couldn't stop now. Not when I was this close. In Josiah's home office, the one he always locked, though I'd made a copy of the key months ago, I found his backup drives. My hands shook as I copied everything onto multiple USBs. The evidence files, the emails, the timestamps. One for Marcus, one for Emma, one hidden in my car, another in the freezer behind the ice cream Josiah never touched because he was watching his physique. I used my phone to photograph the bruising that had spread across my abdomen and ribs, purple-black patches that looked like storm clouds gathering under my skin. Each photo was uploaded to 3 different cloud services. Something happened to me tomorrow. If I collapsed, if Josiah somehow found out, the evidence would survive. My phone rang. Emma. Just checking in, she said, but I could hear the worry bleeding through her casual tone. How did the doctor's appointment go yesterday? I laughed, but it came out wrong, bitter and broken. Emma, I need to tell you something. The silence on her end stretched as I explained everything. The internal bleeding. The surgery. Josiah's ultimatum. My plan for tomorrow. I could practically feel her rage building through the phone. I'm getting on a plane, she said before I'd even finished. Right now. Emma, you don't need to. Like hell I don't. My sister is married to a monster who's trying to kill her for a commission check. I'll be there by midnight. The front door opened downstairs. Josiah's voice carried up, loud and slightly slurred. He was on the phone, probably with Bradley from his team. Tomorrow's going to be legendary, Brad. The bonus alone will be 6 figures. Naomi's already got everything perfect, she's good for that at least. Good for that at least. After everything, I was reduced to a useful function. I heard him rummaging in the kitchen, probably looking for the dinner I hadn't made. For the first time in 3 years, his meal wasn't waiting. A petty victory, but I'd take it. His footsteps on the stairs made me quickly close my laptop. He appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, face flushed from alcohol. No dinner. He wasn't really asking. I wasn't feeling well. He rolled his eyes. Still being dramatic about tomorrow, I see. Look, I need you functional for the pitch. Wear that navy dress. Professional but not distracting. You know how conservative Kellerman's team can be. He walked past me to our closet, not noticing how I was hunched over, arms wrapped around my middle. Oh, and make sure you're there by 9:30. I want you seated and ready before they arrive. Silent support, you understand? Let me do the talking. Silent support. If only he knew how loud my silence was about to become. He grabbed his iPad and headed to the bedroom, probably to review his presentation one more time. I'm going to practice the pitch. Don't interrupt. I listened from the hallway as he rehearsed my words with his characteristic confidence. The integrated nostalgia campaign, my concept he'd called amateur 3 weeks ago. The demographic targeting strategy I'd developed during those 2 a.m. sessions while he slept. The tagline that had come to me during a particularly bad pain episode, when I'd thought about how companies like people could honor their past while embracing change. I held up my phone, recording every word. Evidence of him claiming ownership of ideas he'd initially rejected. His voice carried that particular tone of authority he used when presenting his brilliance. Deeper, more modulated, nothing like the dismissive pitch he used with me. Revolutionary integration of traditional values with digital innovation, he practiced. My words, written in an email dated 3 weeks ago at 1:47 a.m. A car pulled into our driveway just before midnight. Emma. She took one look at me and went pale. Oh my God, Naomi. You look like... I know. She pulled me into a gentle hug, careful not to press against my abdomen. We're going to the emergency room. Right now. After tomorrow. Naomi. I need to do this, Em. Not just for me. For everyone else he's erased. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Show me everything. We sat at the kitchen table. Josiah was snoring upstairs, deep in his confident sleep, and I laid out 3 years of evidence. The emails, the stolen campaigns, the documentation. But Emma surprised me by pulling out her own laptop. I've been keeping records too, she said quietly. I never trusted him. Remember your Morrison Award from 6 years ago? The campaign for Riverside Healthcare. I nodded. It had been my proudest achievement before I met Josiah. Look at this. She pulled up Josiah's online portfolio, dated last year. There it was. My Riverside campaign, listed as his work from early in his career. He'd even slightly modified the graphics to make them harder to trace. I have the original files, Emma continued. Your old creative director sent them to me when he saw Josiah's portfolio. He was furious but didn't want to interfere in your marriage. My hands clenched. He'd stolen work from before he even knew me, retrofitting my history into his narrative. There's more, Emma said, pulling up social media posts. I've documented every time he's taken credit publicly. Every interview where he's claimed your ideas. I've been waiting for you to be ready to see it. We spent the next 3 hours organizing everything. Emma helped me write backup plans, resignation letters, medical documentation, even a statement that would automatically post to my LinkedIn if I didn't cancel it by noon tomorrow. She transferred copies of everything to her own devices, set up remote access to my files, and even created a shared document that would alert Marcus if neither of us updated it by tomorrow afternoon. At 3 a.m. Josiah started talking in his sleep. Kellerman deal. My vision, biggest win yet. Emma had to physically restrain me. Not now. Tomorrow in front of everyone. That's when he pays. She helped me take more photos of the bruising now spread up to my ribs. We wrote out medical directives, giving her power of attorney if I became incapacitated. She even helped me practice staying upright, finding positions that minimized the pain enough to appear functional. You could die, she said quietly as dawn approached. I almost died living like this anyway, I replied. At least tomorrow I'll be visible when it happens. The alarm at 5:30 a.m. was unnecessary. I hadn't slept. Emma dozed fitfully on the couch, having refused to leave me alone. I moved through my morning routine like a ghost, each movement calculated to conserve energy. The navy dress Josiah had specified hung on my frame differently now, looser from the days of barely eating through the pain. You don't have to do this, Emma whispered as I applied concealer to hide the shadows under my eyes. Yes, I do. I steadied my hand to apply lipstick, armor for the battle ahead. If I don't show up, he wins by default. He'll spin my absence as unreliability, use it to further bury my contributions. The drive to Apex Marketing at 6:45 a.m. felt like approaching a battlefield. Emma followed in her rental car, ready to intervene if necessary. The morning sun cast long shadows across the parking garage, and I counted each step from my car to the elevator, rationing my strength. Robert, the security guard who'd watched me arrive early so many mornings over 3 years, did a double take when I walked through the lobby. Mrs. Blackwood? You all right? You look. He trailed off, professional enough not to finish the sentence. Just need to get through one more meeting, Robert. His weathered face creased with concern. Should I call someone? You're white as paper. I'll be fine. Just a big presentation today. He looked unconvinced but buzzed me through. You need anything, you call down. I mean it. The executive conference room was pristine, all glass and chrome and intimidation. I arrived 2 hours before anyone else, using the time to arrange everything strategically. Water bottles positioned to hide my trembling hands. Extra chairs placed where I could grip them for support if needed. My seat chosen carefully, close enough to the door for a quick exit if necessary, but with clear sight lines to watch every face when the truth emerged. I opened my laptop and pulled up the presentation one final time. My work, every slide of it, about to be delivered by a man who saw me as nothing more than a convenient tool. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was using my last reserves of strength to ensure my own work would be presented perfectly, even if under his name, for now. At 8 a.m., other employees began filtering in. Several stopped to stare at me through the glass walls, clearly shocked by my appearance despite my attempts at concealment. Lisa, the intern who'd witnessed too many of Josiah's credit-stealing meetings, actually mouthed, "Are you okay?" through the glass. I managed a small nod. At 8:30, Josiah arrived like a peacock in full display. Designer suit pressed to perfection, shoes gleaming, that specific cologne he wore for power meetings, announcing his presence before he entered. He looked refreshed, glowing from yesterday's spa treatment, while I sat dying, literally dying, in the chair where he expected me to be his silent support. "You look unprofessional," were his first words to me. Not "good morning." Not "how are you feeling." Just immediate criticism. "I told you to make an effort. The clients will notice." He didn't see the death pale beneath my makeup or the way I gripped the table for support. He saw only that I might reflect poorly on him. "Here, hold this." He handed me his coffee cup, his special blend from the boutique place downtown, while he adjusted his tie in the mirror-like surface of the conference room window. I was furniture to him, a convenient table for his belongings. "Did you print extra copies of the presentation?" he asked, not looking at me. "They're in the folders." My voice came out steadier than expected. "Good. Remember, you're here for support. Silent support. I do the talking." He pulled out his phone, probably checking his appearance in the camera one more time when reception called. "Mr. Blackwood? The Kellerman team has arrived. They've brought additional people." Josiah's face lit up with pure greed. "Additional decision makers. This is even better than expected. They're probably ready to sign today." He grabbed the presentation materials, then placed his hand on my lower back. Not in affection but ownership, the way someone might rest their hand on a briefcase or laptop bag. "Come on. Let's close this deal." Walking to the reception area felt like a death march. Each step sent pain radiating through my core, but I kept moving, kept breathing, kept my face neutral. Emma was somewhere in the building. She'd texted that she'd positioned herself in the lobby cafe with a clear view of the elevators. The elevator doors opened, and I watched Josiah's confident expression transform into something I'd never seen before: fear. Marcus stood there, but he wasn't alone. Beside him was Vivian Ashford, whose sharp eyes missed nothing, and two board members I recognized from Kellerman Industries' website. This wasn't a sales meeting anymore. This was a tribunal. "Josiah," Marcus said coolly. His eyes flickered to me with concern before returning to my husband. "Thank you for accommodating our expanded team." Of course. Josiah's voice had lost some of its boom. "Always happy to meet with key stakeholders. This is Vivian Ashford," Marcus continued as we walked toward the conference room. "She's our new ethics consultant. We've recently implemented a policy of thoroughly vetting all potential partners for, shall we say, integrity alignment." Josiah's hand on my back tightened to the point of pain. I could feel his palm growing damp through my dress. "Ethics consultant?" He tried to keep his tone light. "That's very thorough of you. We believe transparency and authenticity are fundamental to successful partnerships," Vivian said, her voice smooth as silk over steel. "Wouldn't you agree?" "Absolutely. Of course. Transparency is essential." We entered the conference room and I saw Josiah's eyes dart to the presentation materials, then to me, then back to the Kellerman team. He was calculating, trying to figure out what they knew, what angle to play. Vivian sat directly across from where Josiah would present, opening a leather folder with deliberate precision. "Before we begin, Mr. Blackwood, I'd like to address something." "Oh." His voice cracked slightly. "We've received some interesting information about this campaign. Specifically about its true creator." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears, feel my heart pounding despite the weakness in my body. Vivian looked directly at me. Mrs. Blackwood, Naomi, we have documentation showing that every aspect of this campaign was created by you. Josiah's mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. He turned to me and for the first time in 3 years he truly saw me. Not as his support system, not as his convenient tool, but as the architect of his destruction. What did you do? The words came out as a desperate whisper, his face draining of all color. I met his gaze steadily, finding strength I didn't know remained. I made a call, I said simply, my voice carrying across the silent conference room. Josiah's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. This is a misunderstanding, he stammered, turning to Marcus. Naomi is confused. She's been on heavy medication for a medical condition. The medication I'm not taking, I interrupted, finding strength in the truth. Because I haven't had the surgery yet. The surgery you called dramatic. The surgery you told me to cancel for this meeting. Marcus leaned forward. She told you about a life-threatening condition and you demanded she postpone treatment? It wasn't life-threatening. She exaggerates. Josiah's voice was climbing higher, desperate. Internal hemorrhaging isn't an exaggeration, Vivian said coolly. We have the medical documentation. The conference room door opened and Richard Apex himself walked in. The founder rarely involved himself in day-to-day operations anymore, but someone had clearly alerted him. His face was granite as he surveyed the scene. Josiah, he said quietly. We need to discuss some concerns that have been raised. Richard, this is all a misunderstanding. Naomi and I are a team. We work together on everything. A team. Marcus's voice cut through Josiah's rambling. Then why doesn't her name appear on a single presentation? Why is she listed as support staff when she created the entire campaign? She helps with research. I have emails, I said, pulling out my phone with shaking hands. 3 years of emails where I sent complete campaigns to Josiah at 2 or 3 a.m., and his responses telling me they need work, before he presented them word for word as his own. Vivian opened her folder wider, spreading papers across the table. We've been contacted by 3 former Apex employees. Rachel Morrison, who left 18 months ago. James Park, who transferred to the Seattle office. Maria Santos, who resigned after 6 months. All have similar stories about Mr. Blackwood taking credit for their work. Through the glass walls, I could see employees gathering, pretending to work while watching the drama unfold. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages from colleagues who were finally understanding why I always looked exhausted at company events. Why Josiah always had perfect answers to technical questions he shouldn't have known. This is a witch hunt, Josiah snarled, his polished facade cracking completely. You're all buying into the delusions of a sick woman who... The door opened again. Lisa, the intern who'd witnessed too much, walked in carrying a folder. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. Mr. Apex, I thought you should see this. I've been documenting instances where Mr. Blackwood claimed credit for junior staff work. 15 incidents in the past 4 months alone. She placed the folder on the table and quickly retreated. Through the glass, I saw others nodding, some pulling out their phones, probably adding their own experiences to the growing avalanche. You ungrateful, Josiah started toward me, his face purple with rage. That's enough, Richard said sharply. Josiah, effective immediately, you're suspended pending a full investigation. You can't do this. The Kellerman account belongs to whoever actually created it, Marcus interjected. Which appears to be Naomi. Josiah's hands clenched into fists. This is my work. My vision. She was just what? I stood, though the effort made my vision swim. Just your wife. Just support. Just the person who bled for your success while you got spa treatments. Security is on their way, Richard said, his phone in hand. Josiah lunged toward me then, grabbing my arm hard enough that I knew there would be bruises. You're nothing without me, he hissed, his breath hot against my face. I made you. I gave you everything. You took everything, I gasped, the pain from his grip mixing with the agony in my abdomen. 2 security guards appeared, moving quickly to pull Josiah away. But the sudden movement, the stress, the exhaustion, it was too much. The adrenaline that had kept me upright for hours suddenly evaporated. My legs buckled. Naomi. Multiple voices called out as I crumpled. The world tilted sideways. I saw Josiah being restrained by security, his face no longer angry but terrified, the expression of a man watching his carefully constructed empire crumble. Through the glass walls, employees had their phones out, recording everything. His humiliation would be viral by lunch. "Get an ambulance," someone shouted. "Marcus, I think." Emma burst through the door, having somehow known the exact moment I needed her. "I'm her sister. She has internal bleeding. She needs surgery now." She knelt beside me, cradling my head. "I've got you. It's over. You did it." The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was Josiah being led out by security, his designer suit rumpled, his perfect image destroyed. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like a wizard revealed to be just a man behind a curtain. The sound that followed me into unconsciousness wasn't his protests or threats. It was the sound of truth finally being spoken, echoing through the glass walls of Apex Marketing. When I woke, the first thing I noticed was the absence of pain. The grinding agony that had been my constant companion was gone, replaced by the foggy comfort of post-surgical medication. The second thing I noticed was the flowers. My hospital room looked like a florist shop had exploded. Bouquets covered every surface. Roses, lilies, cheerful daisies. Emma sat beside my bed, scrolling through her phone with a satisfied expression. "Welcome back," she said, squeezing my hand. "You've been out for 14 hours. The surgery? Successful. Dr. Reeves said another 12 hours and your organs would have started shutting down. Josiah literally almost killed you for a commission check." I processed that, the reality of how close I'd come to death for someone else's greed. "What happened after?" Emma's grin was fierce. "Oh sister. You've become a legend. The video of Josiah being escorted out has 2 million views. The story went viral. Executive exposes husband's theft while dying. You're trending." She showed me her phone. Messages flooded my inbox. 3 agencies offering positions, former clients wanting to work with me directly. There was even an email from Morrison and Associates, my old firm, offering to create a position specifically for me. "There's more," Emma continued. "Apex has launched a full review of all Josiah's past work. They're tracking down everyone who might have been affected, making sure proper credit is given. It's being called the Blackwood Audit." A knock on the door interrupted us. Marcus Kellerman entered, carrying a tablet and wearing a gentle smile. "I wanted to make sure you were all right," he said, "and to formally offer you the position of Strategic Director at Kellerman Industries. Your name on everything. Your vision properly credited." I stared at Marcus's tablet, the job offer glowing on the screen. Strategic Director. My name. My title. After years of invisibility, it felt surreal. "Take your time," Marcus said gently. "Focus on recovering first. The position will be waiting." After he left, Emma pulled out her laptop. "You need to see this," she said, her expression mixing satisfaction with disgust. "The Apex audit found more than just stolen credit." She turned the screen toward me. An internal memo from Richard Apex himself, sent to all staff. The forensic audit triggered by Josiah's termination had uncovered years of falsified expense reports. Client dinners that were actually date nights at restaurants I'd never been to. Research trips to Vegas and Miami that aligned suspiciously with his golf weekends. Conference fees for events he'd never attended. "He stole $47,000, Emma said quietly. "Over 3 years. I felt numb. While I'd been skipping lunches to save money, worried about our mortgage, he'd been embezzling funds for his personal pleasures. There's more." Emma scrolled to Josiah's LinkedIn profile. His post from yesterday trying to control the narrative was almost comedic in its desperation. "Excited to announce I'm exploring new opportunities after a mutual decision to part ways with Apex. Sometimes growth requires bold changes. Looking forward to bringing my award-winning vision to a forward-thinking organization." The comments below were brutal. Screenshots of the video circulated. Former colleagues called him out publicly. One comment from Rachel Morrison, who'd left 18 months ago, simply read, "Award-winning vision? You mean Naomi's vision that you stole?" We all knew. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it, then immediately wished I hadn't. "We need to talk. This has gone too far. I'm still your husband. Please." "Block him," Emma said immediately. But another message came through before I could. "I know you're reading this. I'm freezing in our house because you changed the utility passwords. This is cruel, Naomi. After everything I gave you. Everything he gave me? I laughed, but it came out bitter. He means everything he took. Emma grabbed my phone and blocked the number. You need a lawyer. A good one. The lawyer Emma found, Patricia Winters, was a force of nature disguised as a grandmother. She arrived at the hospital the next day with a briefcase and absolutely no patience for what she called parasitic spouses. He's threatening to contest the divorce, she said, reviewing her notes. Claims emotional distress, damage to his career, even suggesting you premeditated this to steal his success. His success. I know. But we need to be prepared. Patricia pulled out a thick folder. Tell me everything. Every incident, every moment of control or manipulation. So I did. The therapy sessions I'd been attending secretly for 6 months, convinced I was losing my mind as Josiah gaslit me about my contributions. Dr. Lynette Shaw had documented everything. The emotional manipulation, the systematic erasure of my professional identity, what she called intimate partner psychological abuse. Patricia took notes, occasionally making sounds of disgust. What about witnesses to public incidents? Company holiday party last year, I said, remembering the humiliation. He told the entire table I was playing at marketing while doing my little projects at home. Everyone laughed uncomfortably. Who was there? I listed names. Patricia smiled like a shark scenting blood. Within 3 days, Josiah's position crumbled entirely. Faced with evidence of embezzlement, witness statements of public humiliation, documented psychological abuse, and the viral video of his meltdown, his lawyer advised immediate capitulation. The papers arrived while I was still in the hospital. Everything I asked for. The house, the savings accounts I'd frozen with Emma's help, the car, and most crucially, legal acknowledgement that all disputed creative work was mine. Josiah's signature looked shaky, defeated. He tried to negotiate for the golf clubs, Patricia told me with undisguised amusement. I told him he's lucky we're not pursuing criminal charges for the embezzlement. His final email came that night. Naomi, can we please talk like adults? This doesn't have to end so badly. We could work something out. I'm willing to forgive you for the ambush if you call off the lawyers. Forgive me. The audacity of it made Emma nearly throw my phone against the wall. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say to a man who thought my near-death experience was something requiring his forgiveness. 2 weeks later, I was released from the hospital. Marcus had sent movers to pack Josiah's things from the house. He'd been staying at a motel, his credit cards maxed out from lawyer fees. Walking into my home, actually mine now, felt like breathing again. The marketing industry is smaller than people think. Word traveled fast. 3 of Josiah's former clients reached out directly, having always wondered why the creative vision disappeared whenever he led meetings solo. Bradley Chon from Phoenix Digital actually said, "We knew something was off when Josiah couldn't answer basic questions about his strategies without you there." I accepted Marcus's offer with a signing bonus that covered my medical bills and left enough to remodel the home office. My office now, not a locked shrine to someone else's false success. The announcement of my new position went live on a Tuesday. Kellerman Industries welcomes Naomi Blackwood as Strategic Director. The response was immediate. Congratulations from colleagues who'd stayed silent for years. Interview requests from industry publications. 3 speaking invitations for marketing conferences. Josiah's announcement, posted the same day, got a different reception. Excited to join Startup Solutions as a junior consultant. Startup Solutions, a struggling company known for taking anyone with a pulse. The comments below were sparse, mostly from people who didn't know the full story. But it was 6 months later when fate delivered its finest irony. The National Marketing Awards, the industry's most prestigious ceremony. I was being honored for the Kellerman campaign. My campaign finally under my name. Emma accompanied me, wearing a dress that cost more than Josiah's monthly motel rent. The ballroom glittered with success stories and I was one of them. My name on the program. My achievement being celebrated. When they called me to the stage, the applause felt like vindication made sound. That's when I saw him. Josiah stood in the lobby, visible through the grand entrance doors. Cheap suit from a discount store, portfolio under his arm, that nervous energy of someone hoping for a break. He was there for an interview. Startup Solutions had a recruitment booth in the adjacent conference room, fishing for desperate talent. Our eyes met across the marble expanse. He looked different. Smaller, dimmer, like someone had turned down his brightness settings. The confident swagger had become a nervous twitch. The man who'd nearly let me die for his bonus was now begging for entry-level positions. For a moment, just a moment, he took a step toward me. His mouth opened as if to speak. I turned away, walking back to my table where my award waited, where my real life was celebrating my visible success. The applause from the award ceremony still echoed in my ears as I returned to my table, leaving Josiah frozen in the lobby like a ghost from another life. Emma squeezed my hand under the table, her smile proud and protective. The weight of the award, a crystal piece with my name etched clearly, felt like redemption made tangible. A year had passed since that morning I'd collapsed at Apex. A year of rebuilding not just my career but my entire understanding of what work could be. My office at Kellerman Industries occupied a corner of the 23rd floor, walls of glass offering views of the city I'd almost died in. But it was what hung on the interior wall that mattered most. The original Kellerman campaign, framed with a small plaque, created by Naomi Blackwood. Almost died for it. Lived to own it. Young strategists started seeking me out after the story went viral. They'd arrive at my office with familiar exhaustion in their eyes, clutching portfolios of work credited to others. Sarah, a junior designer from a competing firm, broke down crying when she showed me campaigns her director had claimed, the same pattern of 2 a.m. emails and dismissive responses I knew too well. Document everything, I told her, the same advice Gwen had given me, passed down like inherited wisdom. Build your case silently. Your moment will come. My team at Kellerman operated differently than any department I'd known. Monday meetings started with health check-ins before project updates. Everyone's name appeared on their work, from interns to senior staff. When Tom, one of my strategists, needed surgery for appendicitis, I told him to take whatever time he needed. Your life matters more than any deadline, I said, meaning every word. The culture shift rippled outward. Other departments began adopting our policies. Richard Apex himself reached out, asking for consultation on rebuilding their workplace culture post-Josiah. The industry that had once rewarded theft and exploitation was slowly, painfully, learning to value transparency. Emma had taken her own leap, leaving her corporate job to launch Visible Work, a consultancy that helped companies identify and eliminate toxic leadership. She used Josiah as case study X, his patterns of manipulation and credit theft becoming a teaching tool for HR departments and executives. You'd be amazed how many Josiahs there are, she told me over lunch 6 months into her venture. Different faces, same playbook. Steal credit, gaslight victims, claim partnership while practicing parasitism. We'd turned pain into purpose, but some wounds ran deeper than professional theft. Our parents, who'd spent years wondering why I always looked exhausted at family dinners while Josiah boasted about our success, finally understood the truth. Mom had cried when she learned about the surgery ultimatum, Dad's quiet rage more terrifying than any shout. We should have seen it, Mom said during one visit. The way you dimmed around him. We thought it was just marriage adjustment. Abuse doesn't always leave visible bruises, I reminded her, touching my abdomen where the surgical scar had faded to a thin silver line. They became fierce advocates, Mom joining a group for parents of abuse survivors, Dad volunteering with organizations promoting workplace reform. The ripples of truth spread wider than I'd imagined. 8 months after the divorce, an email arrived that made my blood run cold then hot with familiar anger. Not from Josiah. I'd blocked every possible avenue of contact, but from someone named Ashley. Hi Naomi, you don't know me but I'm was dating, Josiah Blackwood. I found some concerning things and searched his name online. The videos, the articles. I need to know. Is it all true? He says you orchestrated his downfall out of jealousy. But something feels wrong. Please respond. Ashley. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let Josiah weave whatever narrative he needed to survive. But then I remembered myself 3 years ago, believing his version of reality, slowly disappearing into his shadow. I responded with facts, not emotion. Attached the court documents acknowledging the creative work was mine. The therapy records documenting systematic psychological abuse. The medical reports showing how close I'd come to death. No editorializing, no anger, just truth. Ashley's response came within hours. Thank you. I'm leaving him today. He's been claiming my work ideas at the startup where we work. I thought I was being too sensitive. You saved me from becoming invisible too. The pattern continued even after losing everything. Josiah had learned nothing, still seeking victims to prop up his hollow existence. 2 weeks later, I heard he'd been terminated from the startup. Ashley had reported him with documentation she'd started after our exchange. He'd relocated to another state, but in the digital age, reputation follows like a shadow. A simple Google search of his name brought up the videos, the articles, the truth he couldn't escape. Lisa, the brave intern from Apex, reached out on the anniversary of that fateful morning. She was a senior strategist now, her talent finally visible. You changed everything, her message read. Not just for me but for everyone who was afraid to speak up. You showed us that truth eventually wins. I kept a folder of these messages, not for ego but for the dark moments when I wondered if the price had been too high. My health, my marriage, my sense of safety, all sacrificed on the altar of visibility. But then I'd remember the alternative. Dying silently while Josiah collected bonuses from my ghost-written life. Standing in my office one evening, city lights twinkling below like earthbound stars, I touched the faded scar on my abdomen. It had been Josiah's cruelty that nearly killed me, but in a strange way, it had also saved me. Without that ultimatum, that final insult of being asked to choose his career over my life, I might have remained invisible forever. The call to Marcus hadn't been about revenge, though justice had followed. It had been about survival, not just physical but spiritual. The death I'd faced wasn't just from internal bleeding but from the slow erosion of self that comes from living as someone else's shadow. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Dinner tomorrow? Mom and Dad are coming. They want to celebrate your 1-year anniversary at Kellerman. 1 year visible. 1 year credited. 1 year of being fully, unapologetically myself. The real triumph wasn't in Josiah's fall. He'd engineered that himself through greed and cruelty. It wasn't even in my rise, though success tasted sweeter when earned under my own name. The real victory was simpler. I'd chosen to live, really live as myself rather than die as someone's convenient ghost. The city lights blurred slightly as tears came, not of sadness but of profound gratitude. I was alive. I was visible. And I was finally, completely free. If this story of workplace justice had you holding your breath, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Naomi made that call to Marcus Kellerman, knowing she was about to expose 3 years of stolen work. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more powerful stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. After I lost my job, my wealthy husband suddenly said, "From now on we split everything 50-50ths. I'll only care for myself." I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just looked at him with calm eyes and said, "All right." He didn't expect what happened after that. "Sign here," Cole said, sliding a document across our marble dining table with the same casual precision he used for multi-million-dollar hedge fund deals. I had my lawyer draw it up this morning. I stared at the paper titled, Domestic Financial Restructuring Agreement, while my coffee grew cold in my hands. 3 days. I'd been unemployed for exactly 3 days, and my husband of 8 years had already consulted a lawyer about dividing our life into itemized columns. "From now on we split everything 50-50, he continued, uncapping his Mont Blanc pen, the one I'd given him for our 5th anniversary. "I'll only care for myself." Before we dive deeper, if you believe marriage should be a partnership, not a business transaction, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps more women find these important stories. Now let's see what Cole's 50-50 arrangement really meant. The morning light streaming through our penthouse windows caught the gold trim of the pen, the same light that used to make our Saturday mornings feel sacred. For 8 years this had been our ritual. Me cooking eggs Benedict from scratch while Cole read the Financial Times, occasionally sharing merger news from his hedge fund world. The hollandaise sauce I'd perfected, the precise temperature of his coffee, the way I'd arrange fresh flowers on the table. All of it had felt like love. Now it felt like unpaid labor he was itemizing. "You had your lawyer draw this up," I repeated slowly, flipping through pages of subsections and clauses. "Without discussing it with me first. I wanted to have a framework ready, Cole said, adjusting his Princeton class ring. A nervous tell I'd noticed during our first date. More efficient this way. Efficient. Everything in Cole's world came down to efficiency and optimization. It's what made him brilliant at managing hedge funds and terrible at understanding why I was staring at him like he'd grown a second head. The document was thorough, I'd give him that. Rent division, utility allocations, grocery expenditures, even a formula for calculating shared space usage fees. My husband had turned our marriage into a spreadsheet while I was still processing my layoff from Hartman Capital. Monday morning had started normally enough. I'd kissed Cole goodbye, driven to the office, grabbed my usual vanilla latte from the cart outside the building. By noon, I was sitting in Margaret's corner office while she explained that market conditions required strategic restructuring. We both knew the truth. The new CEO wanted his nephew in a senior position, and I was the casualty of nepotism dressed up as fiscal responsibility. I need some time with this, Margaret had said, unable to meet my eyes as she pushed the severance package across her desk. You're brilliant, Jade. This isn't about performance. But performance was all that mattered to Cole, apparently. When did you decide this? I asked, setting the contract down carefully, fighting the urge to crumple it into a ball. It's been on my mind for a while, he said, finally looking up from his phone. Your job loss just clarified things. My father always said dependency breeds weakness. His father, William Pemberton, the tech entrepreneur who'd built his fortune on the backs of underpaid programmers and died at his desk at 58, leaving Cole millions and an inability to separate human worth from net worth. I thought about Tuesday evening when I'd finally told Cole about the layoff. He'd been in his home office, 3 monitors glowing with market data. I'd stood in the doorway like a stranger in my own home, watching him track futures prices. I lost my job, I'd said. His fingers had paused on the keyboard for exactly 2 seconds before resuming their clicking. When? Yesterday. They gave me 2 weeks severance. That's when he turned around, his expression unreadable. Don't worry, we'll figure something out. But even as he'd said it, I'd watched him pull up our joint account on his center monitor, calculating how long my final paycheck would last. He'd poured himself a scotch, Macallan 25, a bottle worth more than most people's monthly rent, and excused himself for a quick work call that stretched 2 hours. I'd sat alone in our living room, staring at Lake Michigan through floor-to-ceiling windows, wondering when my unemployment had become something to handle rather than something to support me through. Now 3 days later he was presenting me with a contract that reduced our 8-year marriage to line items and subclauses. What about Thursday? I asked. At Chez Laurent? When you said we were partners. Thursday's dinner had been his idea. A chance to strategize, he'd said. I'd worn the black dress he loved, the one that made me feel powerful even when my professional world was crumbling. He'd ordered a bottle of Krug without asking what I wanted. The first time in 8 years he hadn't asked my preference. Over the amuse-bouche, while other couples held hands across candlelit tables, Cole had launched into a presentation about restructuring our domestic arrangement for maximum efficiency. His business speak for destroying everything we'd built. We are partners, he said now, tapping the contract. Equal partners. That's what this ensures. I looked at my husband, really looked at him. His perfectly styled hair, his Tom Ford suit even though it was Saturday, his expression of mild impatience like I was a difficult client refusing to see reason. When had he become this person? Or had he always been this person and I'd just been too in love to notice? You know, I specialized in forensic accounting at Hartman, I said quietly. Something flickered across his face. Concern? Fear? But he recovered quickly. What does that have to do with anything? Just remembering my skill set, I said, picking up the pen. His pen. My gift to him when we still gave each other presents that meant something beyond their price tags. Since I'm about to be self-sufficient. I signed the contract with a flourish that would have made him proud, if he'd been paying attention to anything beyond his victory. Jade Pemberton in perfect cursive. The last time I'd ever signed that name. There, I said, sliding it back across the marble we'd chosen together in Italy on our honeymoon, giddy with love and possibility. Equal partners. Cole smiled, satisfied, already turning back to his phone. He didn't notice me taking photos of every page with my cell. He didn't notice me mentally cataloging every asset, every account, every carefully hidden financial transaction I'd pretended not to know about. He definitely didn't notice me texting my sister Emma. "You were right. It's happening." Because while Cole thought he was restructuring our marriage, what he'd actually done was declare war. And he just handed me the blueprint for exactly how to win it. Emma's text came back immediately, finally showing his true colors. "Document everything." My sister had never trusted Cole, not since the day she'd met him at our engagement party when he'd corrected her pronunciation of moat in front of everyone. I tucked my phone away and headed to bed, but sleep wasn't happening. My mind kept replaying the signature, the contract, the cold calculation in Cole's eyes. At 5 a.m. I gave up pretending and slipped out of bed. Cole's side was already empty, sheets barely disturbed. Through the closed door of his home office, I could hear his voice, smooth and confident, talking to Singapore about profit margins and market volatility. Saturday morning, and he was already 3 hours into his workday. I padded to the kitchen, needing caffeine to process what my life had become. Cole's laptop sat open on the counter. He must have been working there before his call. The screen was still lit and I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I wasn't ashamed either. The spreadsheet was titled, Household Reorganization Postel. My unemployment had been reduced to initials. The Jade layoff. Like I was a line item in his quarterly reports. The columns were meticulous. Pre-JL monthly contribution showed my salary, our joint expenses, what percentage I'd covered. Post-JL sustainability model calculated exactly how much of a financial drain I'd become. He'd even created projections for different scenarios. If I found work in 3 months, 6 months, a year. The final column made my stomach turn. Optimal resolution timeline. He was calculating how long before he could justify leaving me. I took photos of every worksheet, every calculation, every cold assessment of my worth. Then I noticed another tab, MGM Consulting. The monthly transfers of $3,000 going back 6 months. Madison Grace Mitchell, his 28-year-old executive assistant. The woman who texted him about urgent presentations at 11 at night. The conference call droned on through the door. Cole laughed at something, that practiced chuckle he used with clients. I closed his laptop and went to work. By the time he left for golf at 9, his Saturday morning tradition with Marcus Fitzgerald and 2 other Princeton buddies, I'd transformed our dining room into Command Central. Office Max had opened at 8 and I'd been their first customer, loading up on laminating sheets, color-coded folders, and enough supplies to rival a law firm. "Going to the club," Cole had said, grabbing his tit-laced bag. He'd paused at the door, watching me arrange my supplies. "What's all this?" "Organizing," I'd replied, not looking up. "Being self-sufficient." He'd laughed, actually laughed, and left. The moment his Tesla pulled out of the garage, I got serious. 8 years of marriage meant 8 years of financial documents, tax returns, investment statements, credit card bills. Cole thought he was clever with his hidden assets, but forensic accounting had been my specialty. Finding money was what I did. I created my own masterpiece, a 47-page document titled Marital Asset Utilization Framework. If Cole wanted to run our marriage like a business, I'd give him the full corporate treatment. Section 1. Historical Labor Analysis. Every dinner party I'd hosted for his clients. Every weekend I'd spent charming investors at tedious golf tournaments. Every thank you note I'd written, every gift I'd selected for his business associates. Every hour I'd spent making him look like a functional human being instead of the emotional void he actually was. Section 2. Intellectual Property Contributions. The investment strategies I'd suggested that he'd presented as his own. The connections from my Hartman network that had become his clients. The market insights I'd shared over breakfast that had mysteriously appeared in his presentations. Section 3. Opportunity Cost Analysis. The promotions I'd passed up to accommodate his career. The networking events I'd skipped to host his mother. The professional development I'd sacrificed to maintain his illusion of domestic perfection. By the time Cole's Tesla hummed back into the garage at 1, I'd bound everything in a leather portfolio that looked more expensive than it was. I heard him enter, the sound of his golf shoes on marble, the refrigerator opening. "Jade," he called. "Why is there a lock on your shelf?" I didn't answer. Let him wonder. He found me in the dining room, still in his golf attire. Those ridiculous plaid pants his Princeton friends convinced him looked good. His face was flushed from sun and probably a few beers at the 19th hole. What is all this? He gestured at my war room setup. Your copy, I said, sliding the leather portfolio across the table with the same precision he'd used that morning. Of our updated arrangement. He smirked, that patronizing expression I'd once found charming. Jade, come on. Page 12, I interrupted. Start with section 3.2. Still smiling, he opened the document. I watched his face change as he read. Retroactive compensation for unrecognized labor contributions, 2016 to 2024. This is, he started. Thorough, I supplied. Keep reading. His smile died completely at the total, $347,000 in uncompensated labor, calculated at market rates for comparable services. Executive assistant, event planner, social coordinator, investment consultant. You can't be serious, he said. Page 36. Precedent cases for retroactive compensation in dissolved business partnerships. His phone rang. Marcus Fitzgerald calling to thank him for covering the drinks. Cole's hand shook slightly as he answered and I heard him say, Mark, I need you to look at something. Legal opinion. Can I put you on speaker? Marcus's voice filled the room, still jovial from morning drinks. Sure, buddy. What's up? Jade created some kind of document about our household arrangement. Send it over, Marcus said, his voice shifting to professional mode. I watched Cole photograph pages, his jaw tightening with each image. We waited in silence for Marcus to review them, the only sound the tick of the grandfather clock Cole's mother had given us as a wedding present. Finally Marcus spoke and he wasn't laughing anymore. Cole, is this real? She signed my agreement this morning, so she created this. No, I mean, are these numbers real? Did she really handle all this? Cole's silence was answer enough. Marcus whistled low. Legally, she's got you by the balls, buddy. You wanted a business arrangement, she gave you one. And honestly, based on what I'm seeing here, she's undervaluing her contributions. You're supposed to be my friend, Cole snapped. I am your friend. Which is why I'm telling you the truth. Either tear up both agreements and go back to being married, or prepare to write a very large check. Cole hung up without saying goodbye. We stood there, facing each other across the table where we'd once shared romantic dinners, where we'd planned our future, where this morning he'd dismantled our marriage with a pen stroke. This is blackmail, he said finally. This is mathematics, I replied, echoing his words from that morning. Your idea just properly implemented. Cole stood there for another moment, his hand gripping the portfolio so tightly the leather creaked. Then he turned and walked out, leaving my document on the table like evidence at a crime scene. I heard his office door slam, the lock clicking into place. That night I barely slept. Not because of guilt, I was past that, but because I was planning. Cole thought he was the strategic one, the chess player, the one who saw 3 moves ahead. He didn't realize I'd been watching him play for 8 years, learning every gambit, every tell, every weakness. At 3 a.m. I crept to the living room with my laptop. Our smart home system was Cole's pride and joy, a $50,000 investment in automated everything. The future of living, he'd called it, spending weeks programming routines and zones. Now it would be the battlefield. The master control app was still logged into my phone. Cole had never thought to revoke my administrative access. Why would he? I'd never shown interest in his technical toys before. It took me 3 hours and several YouTube tutorials, but by dawn I'd reprogrammed everything. Jade's Zone and Cole's Zone were born. My zones ran on new passwords, biometric locks that only recognized my face and fingerprints. His zones kept his original access, but with some creative restrictions I'd built in. The beauty was in the overlap areas, the spaces we supposedly shared equally. Those would require both our authorizations to function. I was back in bed, feigning sleep, when Cole's alarm went off at 6 a.m. I heard him pad to the bathroom, yawning. Then silence. Then a muttered curse. The shower wouldn't start. His zone, his problem. Jade, he called. Something's wrong with the shower. I stretched lazily. Mine works fine. Try resetting your access code. More cursing. The sound of him jabbing at the control panel. Finally, the shower started, but only cold water. I'd restricted his hot water heater access to economy mode between 6 and 7 a.m. Energy efficiency after all. By the time he made it to the kitchen still shivering, I was already there with my coffee, reading news on my tablet. "The coffee maker won't connect," he said, staring at the machine like it had betrayed him. "That's in my zone now," I explained. "Would you like to purchase a cup? I'm offering a special rate, only $8 for premium brew." His face went red. "This is ridiculous. This is the 50-50 arrangement you wanted. Equal division of assets." I took a long, satisfied sip of my coffee. "Your coffee maker is in your office." He stormed to his office and I heard the cheap Mr. Coffee machine I'd bought him gurgling to life. $20 at Target. It seemed appropriate. Saturday arrived with Emma's visit. My sister had driven down from Milwaukee in her 10-year-old Honda, parking it next to Cole's Tesla in our garage. The contrast was perfect. Everything about our situation summarized in 2 vehicles. "Holy," Emma stopped mid-word as she entered our penthouse. The living room was bathed in 2 distinct lighting schemes. My side glowed with warm amber tones from the smart bulbs. Cole's side was lit in cold, corporate blue. A clear line divided the space where our zones met. "Jade, what have you done?" "Implemented Cole's vision," I said, hugging her. "Come on, let me show you my side." Emma followed me through the apartment, her teacher's salary sensibilities visibly offended by every surface. When we reached the kitchen, she saw the digital locks on the refrigerator sections. "You're joking," she said. "He ate my meal prep at 2 a.m. Wednesday night. $60 worth of organic ingredients gone." I showed her the security footage on my phone. Cole in his boxers, illuminated by refrigerator light, eating my carefully portioned containers. "This isn't healthy," Emma whispered, but then I showed her my bank statements. The joint account Cole had drained to protect assets. My severance that had mysteriously needed to cover unexpected household expenses. The credit card he'd canceled without warning. "Oh, honey," she said, understanding dawning. "He's trying to force you out." "He's trying to break me," I corrected. But he forgot I learned from the best. Sunday morning, I decided to document Cole's self-sufficiency journey. He'd announced he was going grocery shopping, a first in our 8-year marriage. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. Whole Foods on a Sunday was packed, perfect cover. I kept my distance, phone discreetly recording as Cole wandered the produce section like a lost tourist in a foreign country. He stood in front of the cherry display for 5 full minutes, holding a small box marked $27. "Excuse me," he asked a teenage employee stocking apples. "Is this the normal price for cherries?" The kid looked at the box, then at Cole in his $1,000 sneakers. "It's organic, sir. And imported." "But $27? You could try regular cherries," the employee suggested. "They're $8. Cole put the expensive box in his cart anyway, image over economics even now. The meat counter was worse. He ordered 8 pounds of Wagyu beef, not understanding the price was per pound, not total. The butcher's eyebrows rose, but he wrapped it anyway. Cole added truffle salt, $45, aged balsamic, $62, and something called heritage grains, $30, that I guarantee he couldn't define. His total came to $438.67. For one person. For 1 week. I was already home when he returned, struggling with his bags. "Need help?" I offered sweetly. "I've got it," he grunted, dragging premium groceries to his side of the kitchen. Everything went into his designated areas, including the freezer section I'd marked with digital tape. Monday morning was beautiful. Cole had an 8 a.m. breakfast meeting with Japanese investors, crucial for his fund's expansion. He woke at 6, showered, still cold, and went to make breakfast. I watched from my laptop camera as he opened his refrigerator section. The Wagyu was there, raw and expensive. The heritage grains sat unopened. The truffle salt looked decorative on his shelf. He tried every password combination on my locked section, where my prepped breakfast sandwiches waited. Jade 1234. Anniversary 2016. Even I love you, which made me laugh bitterly. Finally, at 7:47 a.m. he placed an order for delivery. $85 for eggs, toast and coffee, delivered at 8:23 a.m. His investors had already been waiting 23 minutes. That evening I found him eating cereal for dinner. The Wagyu had gone bad, he didn't know it needed to be used within 2 days of purchase. $400 of groceries, I said, and you're eating cornflakes. He looked up at me and for a moment I saw something crack in his facade. Not enough to matter but enough to know the war was working. He set down his spoon, the cornflakes going soggy in the milk. For a second neither of us spoke. Then he pushed back from the table and walked to his office without a word, leaving his bowl right there on the counter. His side of the counter technically, but still, old habits die hard. I cleaned up his mess anyway because seeing dirty dishes bothered me more than making a point. That's when I noticed his credit card statement on the counter, partially hidden under his abandoned Wall Street journal. He'd been reviewing expenses, probably trying to figure out where all his money was going now that he was buying $40 honey and truffle salt he couldn't pronounce. One line item caught my eye. MGM Consulting $3,000. The same charge appeared every month going back 6 months. $3,000 monthly to a consulting firm I'd never heard of, while he'd been telling me we needed to tighten our belts due to market volatility. I photographed the statement and went to my laptop. The address for MGM Consulting wasn't a business complex or corporate building. It was the Meridian, a luxury apartment building downtown where studios started at $4,000 a month. My forensic accounting instincts kicked in hard. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth. I pulled up corporation records, business registrations, tax filings. MGM Consulting LLC had been registered 7 months ago. The managing member? Madison Grace Mitchell. Madison. His executive assistant. 28 years old, Harvard MBA, legs for days and a habit of texting Cole about urgent matters at inappropriate hours. I dug deeper. The LLC had a website. If you could call 3 blog posts about manifesting your best life through strategic thinking, a website. The last post was 4 months old. Some consulting firm. That's when everything clicked. The late nights at the office. The weekend emergency meetings. The way he'd suddenly become protective of his phone, keeping it face down during dinner, taking it into the bathroom during showers. I was building a new spreadsheet, suspicious financial activity, when the universe decided to hand me a gift. It was Tuesday night, 11:47 p.m. according to my laptop clock. Cole was in the shower, his phone charging on his nightstand. The water was running full blast. He'd figured out how to override my hot water restrictions by showering at night. His phone lit up. A text notification. I shouldn't have looked. But then again, he shouldn't have been funding his assistant's apartment while making me document every cent I spent on groceries. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, baby. From Madison Mitchell. The water was still running. I grabbed my phone and photographed his screen, making sure the timestamp was visible. Then I opened my evidence folder. Yes, I had an evidence folder now, and filed it under Exhibit A, Emotional Assets Misappropriation. The shower stopped. I quickly returned to my side of the bed, pretending to read on my Kindle. Cole came out in his Turkish cotton robe, the one I'd bought him for Christmas last year, when I still believed we had a marriage worth saving. Who texted? I asked casually. He glanced at his phone and I watched his face change. Just a flash of panic before the mask slipped back on. Work thing. Singapore markets. Singapore markets. At midnight. Sending heart emojis. Busy day tomorrow? I asked, turning a page I hadn't read. The usual. Some meetings. He climbed into bed, careful to stay on his side of the invisible line we'd drawn down the middle. Why? Just wondering. He was asleep within minutes, snoring softly. I lay there in the dark, planning my next moves. Madison wanted to see him tomorrow. Fine. Maybe I'd do some seeing of my own. Wednesday morning, Cole left early, mumbling something about breakfast with clients. I waited until his Tesla disappeared into traffic, then called in a favor from Janet, my former colleague at Hartman who now worked in the same building as Cole's firm. I need to borrow your visitor pass, I said. Jade, what are you planning? Research. She sighed. Second floor cafe. 20 minutes. The building's lobby was all marble and glass, trying so hard to scream success that it felt desperate. Janet met me at the cafe, sliding her visitor pass across the table. 15th floor is Cole's firm, she said. But you didn't get this from me. Get what? I smiled, pocketing the pass. I didn't go to the 15th floor. I went to the parking garage and waited. Cole's Tesla had a reserved spot, P47, right next to P48, which belonged to a familiar white BMW with vanity plates. Emmeline 28. Madison 28. Settle. At 12:15 they emerged from the elevator together. Cole's hand on her lower back, guiding her toward her car. The kind of casual intimacy that comes from practice. They were laughing about something, her head tilted back, his face more animated than I'd seen in months. I took photos. Then I followed them. They went to Brevard, a restaurant so exclusive it didn't have a sign. The kind of place Cole used to take clients he was trying to impress. Now apparently it was where he took his assistant for meetings. I was sitting in my car reviewing the photos when someone tapped on my window. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Victoria Pemberton stood there in her St. John's suit and pearls, looking like old money and new judgment combined. Cole's mother. My mother-in-law. The woman who'd never quite approved of me but had been too polite to say so directly. I rolled down the window. "Following my son?" she asked, but there was no accusation in her voice. Just curiosity. "Victoria, I can explain." "No need." She opened my passenger door and slid in, bringing with her a cloud of Chanel No. 5. I was at Brevard myself. Library Foundation lunch. Imagine my surprise seeing Cole with his assistant. We sat in silence for a moment. "I know about Madison, dear," Victoria said finally. "Have known for months." My stomach dropped. "Why didn't you tell you?" She turned to look at me directly. "Because Cole's father had his own Madison once. Her name was Jennifer. 26, marketing coordinator, thought she was in love." Victoria's smile was sharp as winter. "I handled it differently than you're handling this." "What did you do?" I stayed quiet. Played the perfect wife. Let him have his fun. She adjusted her pearl necklace. Then Jennifer got pregnant. William paid her to disappear, but the damage was done. The board found out. His reputation never recovered. "I'm sorry, Victoria." "Don't be. I got everything in the end. The houses, the investments, the company shares." She studied me with new interest. "But your way, all this documentation, the contracts, the digital warfare Emma told me about." "Emma talked to you?" "She called yesterday. Worried about you. But I told her not to be." Victoria smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, it reached her eyes. "Your way might be more effective. Certainly more interesting." She opened her purse and pulled out a flash drive. "What's this?" "Security footage from the Pemberton building. 6 months worth. Amazing how often Madison had to work late. How often Cole had to supervise." He pressed it into my hand. "Call it a wedding gift. 8 years delayed." I stared at the flash drive in my hand, this small piece of plastic that felt heavier than my wedding ring ever had. Victoria was still watching me, her expression unreadable behind those perfectly applied cosmetics that probably cost more than most people's car payments. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. "Because," she said, checking her Cartier watch, "Cole is making the same mistakes his father made, but with less style and even less discretion. At least William had the sense to be subtle." She opened her door, then paused. "I'm coming for tea tomorrow. Have Earl Grey ready." She left me sitting there, holding evidence I hadn't even asked for, from a woman who'd spent 8 years making me feel like an interloper in her son's life. Thursday afternoon, Victoria arrived precisely at 2, wearing a different St. John's suit but the same expression of mild disappointment she'd perfected over decades of charity boards and country club politics. Cole was at the office, or wherever he actually spent his afternoons now. "Earl Grey?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Please." I went to the kitchen and returned with my laminated price list, the one I'd created after Cole's 50-50 declaration. "That'll be $12. Includes preparation, service, and cleanup." Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. She opened her Hermes wallet, not the everyday one but the special occasion piece that probably cost more than my car, and counted out exactly $12 in singles. Her manicured fingers trembled slightly, not with rage as I'd expected, but with what looked like suppressed laughter. $12, she said, placing the bills on the coffee table. "For tea." "Cole's policy. I'm just following the rules he established." "Indeed." She maintained eye contact with an intensity that could freeze champagne. "Make the tea, dear. We need to talk." When I returned with the Earl Grey, properly steeped china cup, the whole ceremony she'd trained me in, Victoria had spread documents across my coffee table. Old documents, yellowed at the edges, some handwritten in fountain pen. 1987, she said, lifting a credit card statement. William started his own restructuring of our marriage. Said I'd become too dependent, too comfortable. Sound familiar? I sat down, careful not to disturb the papers. The statement showed charges to hotels, restaurants, jewelry stores. None of them for Victoria. Jennifer, Victoria continued, was 26. Marketing coordinator at his firm. Blonde, ambitious, thought she was special. She sipped her $12 tea. They always think they're special. How did you find out? Credit card statements first. Then private investigator. This was before cell phones, dear. Following people required actual skill. She pulled out a manila folder, thick with photographs and reports. Cost me $5,000 but worth every penny. The photos were grainy but clear enough. William Pemberton, looking exactly like an older version of Cole, with a young woman who could have been Madison's older sister. What did you do? I asked. Nothing at first. I let him think he was clever. Let him make mistakes. And he did, so many mistakes. She smiled, sharp as winter moonlight. Then I started moving money. Moving money? William thought he controlled our finances. He was the businessman after all. But I'd been managing my father's estate since I was 21. I knew more about offshore accounts and asset protection than William ever bothered to learn. She pulled out another document. By the time he asked for a divorce, I'd already moved 70% of our liquid assets into trusts he didn't know existed. That's brilliant, vindictive, necessary. Victoria shrugged. It was survival. But you're doing something different. Something smarter. She pulled out a thick legal document, pages tagged with colored tabs. This is William's prenuptial agreement template. The one Cole used for yours with modifications. I took the document, scanning through familiar language until she pointed to a specific section. Section 17B. William insisted on this, financial deception affecting marital assets. He thought it would protect him if I ever hid money. Her laugh was bitter. Instead, it became his downfall. Jennifer got pregnant. He paid her to disappear. That payment constituted financial deception affecting marital assets. And Cole kept this clause? Modified it, expanded it, made it even more comprehensive. Victoria turned to the marked page. Any undisclosed financial transaction over $5,000 that affects marital assets or stability can trigger immediate forfeiture of claims. $30,000 to Madison over 6 months. All documented. Victoria, this is your ammunition. Use it wisely. She stood, gathering specific documents while leaving others. Keep these. The originals are in my safe deposit box if you need them for court. Why are you really doing this? He paused at the door. Because I spent 30 years pretending my marriage was perfect while William humiliated me with younger women. You're not pretending. You're fighting. And frankly, she smiled again, that sharp winter smile, it's about time someone in this family fought back properly. After she left, I went to Cole's home gym. His sacred space where he pretended to work out while actually taking conference calls. Victoria's words echoed, check everywhere. His gym bag sat in the corner, the expensive leather one I'd given him last birthday. I emptied it methodically. Protein powder, earbuds, spare clothes, and there, tucked in an inside pocket, a small digital recorder. My hands shook as I played it back. Cole's voice, clear and confident. She's been unstable since the layoff. Crying constantly, not sleeping, making these bizarre accusations about affairs. Then Madison, we need to be careful. If she finds out about the payments. She won't. She's too emotional to think clearly. Classic depression. My lawyer says if we can document mental instability, the prenup becomes irrelevant. How long before you can file? Few more weeks. Let her keep playing with her spreadsheets and locks. The more erratic she acts, the better for us. Madison laughed, tinkling and false. Poor thing. She really has no idea. None, Cole agreed. By the time she figures it out, I'll have everything lined up. Clean break, minimal settlement, and we can finally stop hiding. The recording continued for another 40 minutes. Plans within plans, lies within lies. They'd been strategizing my breakdown while I'd been fighting for my marriage. I sat on his workout bench, recorder in hand, feeling something shift inside me. Not breaking, hardening. Like coal under pressure becoming diamond. I copied the files to 3 different drives, uploaded them to the cloud and emailed them to my lawyer. The one I'd hired yesterday, Patricia Nakamura, who specialized in high-net-worth divorces and had a reputation for destroying prenups. Then I put the recorder back exactly where I'd found it. Let Cole think I was still in the dark, still playing with spreadsheets while he planned my demolition. The recorder went back in Cole's gym bag, nestled between his protein powder and spare socks. My hands were steady now, my mind clear. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival. That evening, I called Patricia Nakamura from my car, parked outside a Starbucks where the Wi-Fi was free and Cole couldn't monitor my calls. I need to see you tomorrow, I said. Can you recommend a forensic accountant? I work with someone, Patricia replied, her voice professional but warm. Keiko Tanaka. She's expensive but she finds everything. How expensive? 5,000 retainer. Each. $10,000. My entire severance package minus what I'd already spent on groceries and gas. Cole thought I was using it for the therapy he'd been suggesting. You seem stressed, Jade. Maybe you should talk to someone about your adjustment issues. Book them both, I said. Tomorrow if possible. The law offices of Winters and Associates occupied a corner suite in a building that screamed old money and older secrets. Rachel Winters herself met me in the lobby, 60-something, silver hair in a power bob, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Patricia says you have an interesting case, she said, leading me to a conference room where Patricia Nakamura waited with another woman, Keiko Tanaka, I assumed. I spread everything on the table. The contracts, the flash drive from Victoria, the recordings, the financial documents, my own detailed spreadsheets tracking 8 years of uncompensated labor. Rachel whistled low. He actually signed this 50-50 agreement? His idea. Had his lawyer draft it. And these recordings? Found them yesterday. He's been planning to claim I'm mentally unstable. Keiko was already deep in the financial statements, her fingers flying across her calculator. These MGM consulting payments, they're just the beginning. Look here. She pointed to a series of transfers. He's been moving money for 2 years. Cayman accounts, Swiss-numbered accounts. Not illegal, but definitely violates any reasonable interpretation of financial transparency in a marriage. Can you trace it all? Give me a week, Keiko said. Maybe less. Patricia pulled up Cole's firm website on her laptop. Pemberton Capital. His father's company. Cole's a senior partner now, I said. And Madison Mitchell is listed as executive strategic consultant, Patricia noted. Interesting title for someone with 3 blog posts about manifestation. Rachel leaned back in her chair, a predatory smile spreading across her face. The prenup has a financial deception clause. Section 17B. Any undisclosed financial transaction over $5,000 that affects marital assets triggers forfeiture. $30,000 to Madison so far, I said. Plus whatever Keiko finds in those offshore accounts. Rachel's smile widened. Your husband just handed us a gift. We spent 3 hours building the strategy. Keiko would trace every penny. Patricia would document the pattern of deception. Rachel would prepare the filing that would destroy Cole's carefully constructed exit plan. One more thing, Rachel said as we finished. Document everything from now on. Every conversation, every transaction, every time he breathes wrong. And Jade, be careful. Cornered animals get dangerous. Saturday morning, Cole left for Boston. A weekend conference he claimed, though I'd seen the hotel confirmation email on his phone. The Ritz-Carlton, 2 rooms booked. MGM Consulting must need extensive strategic consultation. An hour after his Tesla disappeared, the doorbell rang. Madison Mitchell stood in my hallway, all 5'9" of her, wearing designer jeans and confidence-like armor. I need to get some work files from Cole's office, she said, already stepping forward like she owned the place. He's in Boston, I said, not moving from the doorway. I know. He gave me permission to. No. She blinked, clearly not used to being refused. Excuse me. No, you can't come in. If Cole wants to give you files, he can do it himself. At the office. During business hours. Her perfectly glossed lips tightened. You don't understand. These are important documents for Monday's meeting. Then Cole should have remembered them. I started to close the door. She put her hand against it, forcing it open. Look, I don't think you understand the situation here. I pulled out my phone, already recording. Explain it to me. Maybe it was my calm tone, or maybe she was just that confident. But Madison stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper that my phone still caught perfectly. Cole promised me this place would be mine soon. So maybe you should start packing now, save yourself the embarrassment later. How soon? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Few weeks, maybe less. Depends how quickly his lawyer can prove you're unfit. She smiled, all teeth and no warmth. The crying, the paranoid behavior with the locks and contracts. It's all documented. Mental instability due to job loss. Classic case. Is that what Cole told you? It's what everyone can see. She stepped back, satisfied with her threat. I'll tell Cole you were uncooperative. Again. I let her get to the elevator before calling out. Madison. She turned, one eyebrow raised. Check your email. I sent the cease and desist letter Rachel had prepared while Madison was still in the elevator. Legal notice to stop harassment, stop attempting unauthorized entry to my residence, and stop interfering with my marriage. Copy to Cole's firm's HR department. Copy to their legal team. My phone buzzed immediately. Cole from Boston. What did you just do? I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded Keiko's preliminary findings to Patricia. Cole had been billing Pemberton Capital for Madison's consulting fees while she provided no actual services. The invoices were fake, the work non-existent. Not enough for criminal charges. Cole was too smart for that. But enough to trigger an internal investigation. Sunday evening, while Cole was still in Boston, I compiled everything into a single encrypted folder. Financial records showing 2 years of hidden transfers. Recording of him planning to claim mental instability. Madison's confession about taking the apartment. Victoria's evidence of the pattern. Father and son, same playbook, 30 years apart. The investigation had revealed one final detail that even surprised Keiko. Cole had taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on me 6 months ago. I was unemployed, supposedly unstable, and worth more dead than divorced. Rachel called that evening. We file tomorrow. Be ready. I sat in my divided living room, my warm lights glowing against his cold blue ones, and thought about the woman I'd been 8 years ago. The one who'd signed that prenup thinking it would never matter because our love was real. The one who'd made his coffee every morning because taking care of him felt like love. That woman was gone. In her place sat someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. Someone who'd learned that when your husband treats marriage like a hostile takeover, you better be ready to fight like a corporate raider. My phone buzzed at 3 a.m. Monday morning. Rachel's text, filed. Game on. I didn't sleep after that. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table watching the sunrise paint Lake Michigan gold while reviewing my notes for tonight. The quarterly partners' dinner at Pemberton Capital. The one event where spouses were not just invited but expected. Cole had forgotten to remove me from the guest list. By the time Cole stumbled into the kitchen at 7, I was already dressed. Not for war but for victory. The black Valentino dress I'd bought myself after my last promotion at Hartman, the one Cole said made me look too powerful for social events. Coffee's not working again, he muttered, jabbing at his machine. Try reading the manual, I suggested, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. I hear self-sufficiency builds character. He glared at me, then noticed the dress. Where are you going? Work meeting, I lied smoothly. Potential consulting opportunity. He grunted, still fighting with the coffee maker. That's when the doorbell rang. I'll get it, I said, but Cole was already at the door, probably expecting Madison with his morning files. Instead, a process server stood there looking bored and official. Cole Pemberton? Yes. You've been served. The man handed Cole a thick envelope and walked away without another word. Cole tore it open right there in the doorway, still in his robe, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally rage. You're divorcing me? He held up the papers like evidence of my betrayal. You wanted a business dissolution, I said, adjusting my earrings. I'm giving you one. He flipped through the pages, his face getting paler with each section. $347,000? You're insane. That's just the retroactive compensation. Wait till you see the penalties for financial deception. Page 47 if you're curious. His hands actually shook as he found the page detailing the MGM consulting payments, the offshore accounts, the life insurance policy he'd taken out on me. How did you? Forensic accounting was my specialty, remember? Or did you forget everything about my career the moment I lost my job? His phone started ringing, then pinging, then buzzing with the intensity of a swarm of angry bees. Word was already spreading. That evening, I arrived at the Palmer House's grand ballroom 20 minutes after cocktails started. The Pemberton Capital quarterly dinner was in full swing, 50 partners and their spouses pretending to enjoy each other's company while calculating each other's net worth. I found Richard Pemberton, the managing partner and Cole's cousin, standing near the bar with his wife. Richard had inherited his father's position and his grandfather's nose for scandal. "Jade," he said, clearly surprised. "We didn't think you'd." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, pulling an envelope from my clutch. "Actually, Richard, could we speak privately? It's about Cole." His wife excused herself immediately, the kind of woman who knew when to disappear. Richard led me to a corner, his expression already wary. "This is about the divorce papers," he said. "This is about embezzlement," I corrected, handing him the envelope. "MGM Consulting. 3,000 monthly for 6 months. Fake invoices, no services rendered. The consultant in question is better known for other services she provides to Cole." Richard opened the envelope, his face hardening as he read Keiko's forensic analysis. The fake invoices, the evidence that Madison had never provided any actual consulting work. "This could destroy the firm's reputation," he said quietly. "Only if it becomes public," I agreed. "Which depends entirely on how the partners handle it." Across the room, Cole had just arrived with Madison on his arm. Bold move, bringing his mistress to a partner's dinner while still technically married. Several wives noticed immediately, their whispers spreading like wildfire. Richard looked from the papers to Cole to me. "What are you asking for?" "Nothing from the firm. This is between you and your partner. I just thought you should know where company funds were going." I walked away, leaving Richard holding evidence that would trigger an emergency partners meeting within hours. But first I had one more performance to give. Cole found me at the dessert table, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. Madison hung back, suddenly less confident in a room full of wives who knew exactly what she was. "You're destroying everything," he hissed. "I'm documenting everything," I corrected, loud enough for nearby partners to hear. "There's a difference. This is my father's firm." Victoria's voice cut through the air like ice. She stood in the doorway, magnificent in Chanel, flanked by a man in a suit that screamed legal counsel. "It was your father's firm. Before you dishonored his memory with your sloppy affair and sloppier embezzlement." The room went silent. Madison actually stepped behind Cole like he could shield her from Victoria's Arctic presence. "Mother," Cole started. "I'm here in my capacity as trustee of the Pemberton Family Trust," Victoria continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. "To inform you that effective immediately, you're removed from the board for conduct unbecoming a Pemberton. You can't." "I can. I am. I have." He turned to Richard. "I believe you have an announcement as well?" Richard cleared his throat. "The partners will be meeting tomorrow to discuss Cole's position at the firm. Until then, he's suspended pending investigation of financial irregularities." Cole's phone exploded with notifications. Email after email from colleagues, clients, connections, all distancing themselves from his radioactive reputation. He stood there in his designer suit, holding his dying career in his hand while his mistress edged toward the exit. "Your father would be appalled," Victoria said, and her voice carried a lifetime of disappointment. "Not at the affair, God knows William had plenty, but at how poorly you executed it. Fake invoices? Really? At least your father's mistresses could type." Madison fled. Actually ran from the ballroom in her designer heels, leaving Cole standing alone in a room full of people who'd known him since childhood, all of them now seeing him for exactly what he was. I picked up my clutch and walked past him, pausing just long enough to whisper, "Check your email." The message from my lawyer was simple. "Settlement conference scheduled for Thursday. Bring your checkbook." The managing partner's email to all partners arrived while I was in the elevator. Emergency meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. Mandatory attendance. By the time I reached the lobby, Cole's career at his father's firm was over. 8 years of marriage destroyed by his own greed. A lifetime of reputation demolished by his own deception. The elevator doors closed on my old life, and I walked out of the Palmer House into the Chicago night feeling something I hadn't felt in months: free. My phone vibrated with messages from people who'd witnessed Cole's public demolition, but I didn't read them. Tomorrow would bring its own battles. Tonight I just wanted to breathe. Thursday's settlement conference took place in a mediator's office that looked like it was designed to drain the fight out of people. Beige walls, uncomfortable chairs, and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look sick. Cole sat across from me with his new lawyer, some overworked public defender type who probably charged by the hour what Cole used to spend on lunch. "My client is prepared to offer," the lawyer began. "My client's terms are non-negotiable," Rachel interrupted, sliding our demand across the table. "The penthouse, half of all assets including offshore accounts, and $347,000 in retroactive compensation." Cole's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, probably explaining that a public trial would expose the embezzlement, the affair, the life insurance policy, everything. "This is extortion," Cole said, his voice hoarse. He'd lost weight, his suit hanging loose on his frame. "This is mathematics," I said, using his favorite phrase one last time. "Sign it or we go to trial." He stared at me across the table, and for a moment I saw the man I'd married. Brilliant, confident, convinced the world was his to conquer. Then that man crumbled and he picked up the pen with a trembling hand. His signature was shaky, nothing like the bold strokes he'd used on our marriage contract. As he signed away the penthouse, the assets, the life he'd built on his father's money and my invisible labor, I felt nothing. No triumph, no sadness, just a hollow recognition that 8 years had come down to this. Signatures on paper just like they'd begun. 3 months passed in a blur of boxes and paperwork. I kept the penthouse but redecorated, removing every trace of Cole's cold minimalism. Emma helped, bringing warmth with second-hand furniture that had actual character, plants that made the space feel alive, artwork from local artists instead of investment pieces. One morning, Emma texted me a screenshot from Madison's Instagram. I was drinking coffee from a mug that said, "World's okayest ex-wife." Emma's housewarming gift, when I read Madison's post. "Dating in Chicago is impossible. This guy actually invoiced me for half our dinner date. He calculated tax and tip down to the penny. Then charged me for his gas to pick me up. Why are men so cheap?" Hashtag dating nightmare, hashtag Chicago men, hashtag splitting bills is not romantic. I laughed until my sides hurt, then screenshotted it from my karma folder. Madison had found her equal. Someone who treated relationships like transactions. The comments were even better, full of women sharing similar stories, missing the irony completely. That screenshot became the inspiration for my next chapter. I'd been surviving on the settlement money, but surviving wasn't enough anymore. I wanted to build something. Equal Means Everything launched 6 weeks later. Not a law firm, but a consulting service helping women recognize and document financial abuse in marriages. My website went live on a Tuesday. By Thursday I had 17 inquiries. My first real client came through Victoria, of all people. Senator Catherine Walsh, whose husband controlled every penny while she ran his campaigns, raised his children and smiled for his photo ops. She sat in my home office, formerly Cole's gym, crying into tissues while showing me 20 years of financial manipulation. "He says it's for tax purposes," she explained, "but I can't even buy groceries without his approval." "Let me show you something," I said, pulling up my own documentation. "This was my marriage. This is how I proved it. This is how you build your case." Catherine became my success story. Within 4 months she had her own accounts, her own credit cards, and a post-nuptial agreement that would make Cole's prenup look like a kindergarten contract. Word spread through Victoria's country club network faster than gossip at a junior league luncheon. 6 months after the divorce, Victoria invited me to her annual charity gala, the Pemberton Foundation's fundraiser for women's financial literacy. Ironic, considering the Pemberton men's history with financial deception. I wore red, bold, unapologetic red, and arrived alone. The ballroom was full of familiar faces, people who'd watched my marriage implode, who'd whispered about the scandal, who'd chosen sides. Jade, Victoria called out, and for the first time her voice held genuine warmth. Come, I want you to meet someone. She introduced me to 3 women, all going through similar situations, all needing help. By the time dinner was served, I had 5 new clients. That's when I saw him. Cole standing by the bar looking like a ghost of his former self. Thinner, older, wearing a suit that had seen better days. He was working at Morrison & Associates now, a small firm that handled personal injury cases. Madison was nowhere to be seen. He approached slowly like someone approaching a wild animal. Jade. Cole. You look. He paused, searching for words. Happy. I am. He stared at his drink, swirling the ice. I understand now. What I did. How I treated you. I understand. I could have been cruel. Could have twisted the knife, reminded him of every humiliation, every betrayal. Instead, I said simply, understanding and experiencing are different educations. He nodded, started to walk away, then turned back. The firm you started. Equal means everything. It's good work. Yes, I agreed. It is. Victoria appeared at my elbow as Cole disappeared into the crowd. They're about to announce the Community Impact Award, she said, guiding me toward the stage. The Pemberton Foundation is proud to present this year's Community Impact Award to Jade Matthews, the announcer said, using my maiden name that I'd reclaimed, for her work with Equal Means Everything, providing pro bono financial abuse consulting to women in need. I stood at the podium looking out at the sea of faces. Some friendly, some curious, some calculating their own marriage's values. Victoria stood in the front row, and when she smiled at me, she mouthed a single word, daughter. Financial abuse doesn't always look like control, I said into the microphone. Sometimes it looks like equality. Sometimes it's disguised as fairness. Sometimes it comes with a spreadsheet and a laminated contract. But abuse is abuse, whether it's calculated in dollars or delivered in bruises. The room was silent. Equal means everything, I continued. Not equal division but equal worth. Equal respect. Equal partnership. That's what we help women find, not just their financial freedom, but their understanding that they deserve both love and respect, not one or the other. The applause was genuine, warm, real. As I walked back to my table, award in hand, I caught a glimpse of myself in the ballroom mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the one who'd signed that contract with Cole's expensive pen. She wasn't the one who'd made his coffee every morning for 8 years. She was someone entirely new. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't destroying someone else. It's building something better from the ashes they left behind. My phone buzzed. Another inquiry through my website. Another woman needing help. Another chance to turn someone's 50-50 nightmare into a new beginning. I smiled, thinking about Cole in his small apartment, probably eating takeout from containers, finally experiencing the self-sufficiency he'd preached. Me. I was experiencing something better. Freedom. If this story of calculated revenge had you glued to your screen, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Jade charged Victoria $12 for tea service, watching Cole's mother count out exact change with trembling fingers. What was your favorite moment of sweet revenge? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more captivating stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.